Our very first presenter is Sean Perry. He's the principal at Trent Middle School, and I'm going to pull up his TAC website here. Come on up, Sean. Thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm loud. Can you hear me? Hi guys, how you doing? I'm going to start off with a little story. I'd like to set the tone here. Being that I'm a student that had ADHD growing up, and still have it today, like almost more severe probably today than I ever had, learning for me occurred in different ways. One of the ways was a visual. I was a very visual learner, so when I got to watch videos, I got to watch, it explained or produced with manipulatives, I was able to get learning. So I don't know y'all's learning styles type, and we don't have that much time, only 20 minutes, but I decided I'd give you a little bit of a video to start off with.
A true story, lived by a real kid who was all too used to getting F's. School quickly became a place of failure. He didn't like the teachers, and he knew they didn't understand him. When he got the news he was going to repeat 4th grade, he was devastated. Leaving the parking lot after the meeting, he looked over his shoulder and saw the marquee, "Have a great summer." Yeah, right. That night, he drew this picture. How can you play if you don't know the rules? That was just it. He didn't know the rules. His parents thought it had to be the school, so they moved to a new school district to give him a fresh start. This fresh new school year had the same old thinking that produced the same old results. But in 7th grade, a hero emerged. Her name was Mrs. Simpson, a special education teacher that discovered he had a learning disability in math and had ways to address his severe ADHD. She taught him to be relentless and to use failure as a motivator. She taught him how to be gritty and put his nose to the grindstone. These were new skills, and he still struggled, but there was more of a purpose. His freshman year first quarter yielded all F's with a C+, but his growth was tremendous because he was finally learning. At semester, she exchanged school pictures with him with a note on the back reminding him he had the skills to go far in life, stay focused and motivated to reach her goals. She understood his path to success. Wasn't going to be straight, but filled with twists and turns. He fought through high school and made it to college, where he took 7 years to finally walk across the stage. He stayed motivated and focused to reach his goal. He became a resource math teacher because he felt he truly understood his students. Wanting to be a change, he enrolled in his master's in education administration, finally becoming the principal of a campus. He accepted his path, was and will always be curvy. Where is he now? He's a part of a team, making a difference in students' lives just like him.
Hello, my name is Carol Simpson. I'm a former teacher of Sean Perry, the student who was the subject of the story you heard tonight, and who is sitting at your table right now. I've known Sean.
I always mean to do that, but I forget. It's ADHD.
His disabilities in a productive way as an adult.
Okay. The story, that was me in that story. And that's Carol Simpson. Do I have to stay here with the camera?
Yeah.
Okay. That's not working. Way to accommodate for your guest speakers. Miss Simpson was a person to me that was very important because she was finally someone who said, stop giving him things and let's start holding him accountable. And got my parents to buy into that idea. My brother, my older brother, he's a doctor. My other brother, he's a doctor. Then Sean comes along. It was different for those parents. The one thing that my parents really quickly realized is that all 3 kids are always going to be different. They're always going to have different approaches. But what my parents and Miss Simpson did for me is say we can complain because rose bushes have thorns or rejoice because thorn bushes have roses. And they found that where my rose could be. So the purpose of coming tonight was just to share with you guys don't have a disability, because I was reading over it, said attention deficit is a mental disorder that most occurs in children. It's not a disability, it's truly a gift when you learn how to harness it. So my purpose of coming out is kind of this: I took my experiences in life and now apply it to my school at Trent Middle School. And one of my students are back there. But what I'm saying is not for ADHD children, it's also for any student in the world. For the highest of the highs, to the GT students, to everything. Everything I'm applying is something that you can apply to your own world. What that video has not been updated, I am now in my doctorate. I'm what they call ABD. Anybody know what that means? All but dissertation, or all but done. Yes. I was a student, you saw my grades in my freshman year. It was all F's and D's. I had people planning and plotting my career out and saying he's not going to college. In fact, my sophomore year, I was such a special case that my 7th grade special ed teacher, Miss Simpson, moved to high school with me because she was afraid I would die or get killed by a teacher. So she followed me. But I had a counselor sit down one day and say that you got to face the facts with your. My father's a doctor too. You have to face the facts that your son's not going to college. And I vowed at that moment, right there, when I saw someone defend me, that I probably am going to do something in education, because I would never let someone else do that to a kid. So that's why I'm here. But see, what we got here. Have anybody heard of the Frisco bubble before? It's protected. It's a Frisco bubble. We're a very affluent area, and all kids go to college, and most kids go to Yale, you know. But that's not always the truth. Feldman is, in my studies that I'm doing right now, Feldman and Zimbler in 2011 did a report that said 28% of first-year students in 4-year colleges do not return for their sophomore year. 44% of those enrolled in 2-year colleges do not return for their second year. And I'm not going, I'm here for ADHD and you're telling me my kid doesn't have a chance in his freshman year. That's not what I'm saying. I just want to prepare and set the tone for what I'm trying to explain today. In that same year, in 2011, we actually did a study in Frisco ISD. So it's 28% of a national average. Frisco's was 32%. Anybody think that was coming? We don't hold our kids accountable. We baby them. We take care of them. Have you done your homework? Have you done this? Do that. We are in our kids' lives all the time. So I pose a question to you guys. And you can close your eyes and think about this, but if you take you out of your student success equation for success, would they be successful? I see some big eyes. Good. Now we know where the problem is, and as a favorite cartoon I grew up with, G.I. Joe, no one's half the problem, half the battle. You're going to do it. All right. It's a microphone. So let's call some things out, because when you have a student with ADHD, the first thing that comes into your mind is, I got to protect my kid. And I understand that. And you should. But protecting your kid can also enable your kid. So we want to make sure, how are we doing this? Well, we have a way of saying it here. You guys heard of this. The helicopter parent. I'm not a helicopter parent. My son wants me at his job interviews. I'm preparing you guys for the future here. Our mission at Trent Middle School is to inspire students to grow through their effort for success beyond the pack. So what we're trying to do is get kids ready. Helicopter parent doesn't make you a bad person, because I was a helicopter parent. Guess who was my son, who is ADHD too. I gave him good looks and ADHD. That's what I provided him. But he's incredibly intelligent. But what we were finding out is that he was taking spelling tests. Who has elementary kids? All right, spelling test, right? And yeah, it's tomorrow. I'm glad I don't have any. I don't have to worry about it with my youngest. But Bo, I had to worry about it. And Bo, study. Bo, come here and study. We're going to be driving to baseball practice. Bo, study. What's this word? Spell. You know, and go through that. And the guy didn't come out. I said, what'd you get on your spelling test? Because now I'm all involved, right? Now it's my spelling test too. And it's like, what'd you get? What'd you get? I got a 90. All right, you got 90. And I was like, we got a 90. My wife's a counselor, here I am a principal. And I'm looking at it, look at my wife and say, what are we doing? We're doing this all wrong. He is not making an A in his spelling test. We are making an A in his spelling test. If we take us out of the equation, would he be successful? The answer was a resounding no. So what we did as parents is decided to say failure is something that's a wonderful thing. And I'm going to explain a little bit about that. But before we get to helicopter parents, I have to get to the new generation of the lawnmower parents. Now lawnmower parents, they mow down every obstacle in the child's way. Because admit it or not, and I know I'm guilty of it too, parenting has become, it wasn't in my parents' way, but parenting has become very egocentric. We don't want to see our kid fail because it hurts us. And that's the problem. Because everybody sitting in this room, adults, probably learned and got to the position you are in life because you had to learn through the weeds. Correct? You had to fight for what you have. And then we deny our kids that very right, that God-given right to be able to sit there and struggle and learn how to become autonomous adults. We don't look at ADHD as a disability. Yes, maybe in arts. Yes, maybe in IEPs. When we start talking about the struggles in school, but we don't take away that opportunity to learn and through the struggles. Sorry, this is for my school. I have a problem with my parents not pulling up to my cone in the carpool line. Amen. That's it, amen, huh? That's where you're supposed to drop off, right there. So who inspired me to start my dissertation? Her name is Angela Duckworth. She is the Duckworth Institute. She's the one that really coined the phrase grit. Has anybody seen grit or heard about grit? You know, you see it, you got grit, t-shirts come across. She's the one that said that grit is the tendency to sustain interest and effort towards very long-term goals. So let's break down what she said. To sustain interest. Isn't that a hard saying thing to get your kid to sustain interest in anything? So I told you I have ADHD. I still have it. It doesn't go away. You just learn strategies to cope with it. One of my strategies that Ms. Simpson always taught me, I'm a visual learner. If I don't see the goal, I'm not going to accomplish the goal. So everything I always had was always on papers and always on my desk and always, they had little points that she'd remind me, this is what you're doing to get through this next 3 periods. They were teaching me strategies, not teaching me, hey, get the pencil out, do this. This is your goal. What are you working for to get to your break? So much so that in my house right now, on my window, on my mirror, every day when I wake up, my wife writes the date and my weight. She has a goal for me. I have that goal too. But I looked in the mirror, I walked in and I looked in the mirror yesterday, because we do it on Wednesday, and it said 214, which is yesterday, Valentine's Day, which is always a beautiful thing when your wife talks about your weight. But on it said 214, weigh 227. You know, and I'm thinking that 2 weeks ago I started deciding that I need to lose weight, I need to get back in shape. I'm running a half marathon. I set a goal for myself, and part of that goal, to reach that goal, is that I probably need to lose weight before I hurt myself, my knees, my ankles, or possibly have a cardiac arrest on the track. So I needed to start doing that. Well, that's a constant reminder. I wake up, I saw that. I think she talked to my mom because that used to be a strategy my parents used. So I thought I outgrew that 30 years ago, but now I'm back. So to be able to get to that, oh, by the way, I don't always have a beard. I have a beard because I am a dissertation student that's ABD. Do you know why I started growing the beard? My dissertation's not done. I needed to be constantly reminded that my dissertation's not done, that I have to work on it every day. The only way I could figure out doing that without tattooing myself was to grow a beard. That's the only reason why I have a beard. I can't wait to shave it off, because everybody that I know, special to me, will know when I shave that off and post it on Facebook that it's now Dr. Perry. And by the way, I was a college student. I was a sophomore told, you can't go to college. If I could go back to that counselor one day and show him, that doctorate. I would love to. Don't think and don't be discouraged because you're not getting results now. But at Trent Middle School, we have that saying, and I won't put you on the spot, I promise I wouldn't, but we have a Trent mission statement, but we also have a student mission statement. Our student mission statement is, I define myself by my efforts, not my results. When my effort is there, my results will come. Well, that's the problem. That sounds really great. It's really nice, but how do you do it? You teach children self-control. Self-control is the voluntary regulation of behavioral, emotional, and attentional impulses in the presence of momentary gratifying temptations or diversions. Self-control is buckling down when you need to buckle down. Teaching children how to do that, how to fight through the temptations of walking away, all that kind of stuff. When a student believes that intelligence is provided an exception and cannot be increased, they have resigned themselves to a fixed mindset. I'm talking about Carol Dweck now. Now, Carol Dweck talks about two different things. You have either growth mindset or you have fixed mindset. And I'm a huge Star Wars fan, so if you guys know Star Wars, if you are in growth mindset, you believe you can learn, you can fight through, you can persevere, you can do anything you ever wanted to do. And you know it probably is going to be hard. So if you have growth mindset, you are a Jedi. They believe outward. They're always looking for I'm talking Jedi stuff right now for those people who don't understand, I'm geeking out, but they think outward. They think not only of themselves, but outside. They're trying to grow. They're trying to learn the ways of the Force. Now, if you believe that the intelligence is provided exception, you can't grow. I can't do this. I can't. And you let your child feel that way, you are now turning into a Sith Lord. A Sith Lord, they think inwards. They're not trying to learn about the Force, they're trying to take and control the Force. So when a student is telling you I can't do it, they're trying to take control back. Because you can release yourself from responsibilities if you can say I don't care or I don't want to do it, and you release them and we allow that, then they will believe they have fixed mindset. They can't grow. I just throw this in for the parents. The chicken is there, the baby. Then it's hatched, and then you're sitting on top of it as an adult. Who wants to do that as an adult? Who really wants to be on top of their children? So what are the best years to do this? Right now, K through 12. The time this is the time to fail. If you're going to fail in life, fail when you're at home. Don't fail your freshman year when you go off to college, because you didn't teach them how to be autonomous. So going back to my son, there's our Trent mission statement, sorry I jumped around. But I define myself by my efforts, not my results. That's the one we do for the students, but kind of what we do for ourselves as teachers. And we commit to inspire all individuals to grow through their efforts for success beyond the pack. Who remembers the Olympics with Phelps and this guy? Who's defining themselves by their efforts? Who's defining themselves by the results? You see it? Phelps, man, this is effort, I'm done. All that guy was thinking about was first place. And he was thinking, I'm losing it to this guy. He forgot that he was defining himself by his efforts. We are now in a society that gives a trophy for everything. If you participated, you were successful. I personally grew because I liked watching people do better than me. I always was jealous of the smarter kids. I always wanted to be around them. I always wanted to do the academic pentathlons. I always felt like that was the coolest thing. And my teacher let me have that, look up to those people, because he's like, no, you're just as smart as those guys. Because it's not true. Life isn't equal. We need to teach kids that if you want something, work for it. And you're not going to always get what you want, but at least if you defined yourself and you worked hard, you would be proud of yourself. Because if that guy would have done that, did you all really watch that race? Did you watch that? All he needed was one more. And he won the race. We're not watching Titanic or the King. Okay, I'm going to do this here. I'm going to share some of our core values. We run everything we do. We tell kids to process everything through our core values. We are the Wolfpack, Trent Middle School's Wolfpack, and we are purpose, attitude, commitment, and kindness. Steal it, use it for your kids. Redo your own core values. But we ask kids, what's your purpose? You say you can't do it. What's your purpose? You trying to get out of this assignment? Are you trying not to do this? What's your purpose right now? Did you say your purpose was wanting to grow and get stronger? Then let's go, get that purpose redefined. What's your attitude? Are you being a sauerkraut right now and not trying to help out yourself? Or are you finding the positivity in this? If I get this done, I get to go outside and play. Whatever it is for you to help them get a good attitude. How committed are you to the goals? Remember I talked about the weight on the... I left today during Naked Cupcake Day at school where you could decorate your cupcakes with anything you wanted. And I looked at that weight and I said, I'm going to let that go. It reminded me of my goals. I'm committed to try to lose my weight. And then kindness. You're going to fail. If you're a student with ADHD, you're going to fail. And you got to learn how to be kind to yourself. If you know you defined yourself by your effort, be kind to yourself. Say it's okay, pick yourself up, and try it again. So this is my son, but this is my son when he was a golfer before baseball got a hold of him. But this whole is always in my head. This day was always in my head. This is like a student. My son, he's got the brand new Nike shirt on, the brand new pants. He wanted a white belt because he saw a golfer with a white belt, so he went and took one of his mom's belts and cut it, and so he could look at it because we're cheap. But we got him all done up. He's got a brand new putter. He's excited. That's his cousin. Now Jordan, she's a phenomenal golfer. She's number 3 on the Allen golf team. That kid plays golf like no business, and she did it back then too. He looked up to her. He didn't, and we worked on this, and this is where this all came about define yourselves by effort, not results. But he went to the golf course, and he's all dressed up like a first day of school, first day in class. I'm ready to go. I got my shiny new backpack, and I got my pencil bag, and I'm ready to go, and I'm going to be a good student. I'm going to be a great golfer. I'm going to get a low score today. I'm going to do this. He came in with the right attitude, and his first shot off the tee box, this is the actual golf course. I went back and took the picture, the aerial thing from it. He shot it right out in the woods. And I was heartbroken for him. I was heartbroken for 2 reasons. Man, he just deflated. If anybody plays golf, you know how that feels when you shank one out into the woods and you know that that's costing you strokes. 2, I paid $45 for that tournament. And now I know he's going to carry that from hole to hole, but how many times do we see our students carrying that from class to class to class because they had a bad run? They didn't learn how to take the disappointment. Yeah, I didn't do that right, but it's okay. And sometimes you have great teachers that know how to coax them through it, but sometimes you have teachers that are enablers, and they're going to be like, it's okay, baby, it's all right, you don't have to. And then they just release the student of that responsibility. But this is where I got to the crucial moment in my life with my son. Oops, sorry, wrong direction. Where are we going? Okay. Wait, we're going the wrong direction. Here we are. Little birdie comes into my head and says, Sean, shut up. Let him do his thing. Let him figure his own problems out. Because I knew how to get out of that woods. I'm not a bad golfer myself. But let him do it. Offer him a strategy. So I looked at him and I said, yeah, you got some things there to worry about. Look where the green is. And do you have a way to get out of here? How do you do this safely? Remember we talked about strategies, about, sometimes going backwards to go forwards is not such a bad idea. Oh, got it. Don't listen. He's sitting there swinging. I was like, I can't believe he's going to try. This is the green right there, guys. He's going to try to hit it through there. What do you think I did? Remember, I spent $45 on this thing. Oh, yeah, okay. I stepped back a little bit. But I said, go ahead. We'll worry about the next shot. I hope you get it on. He sat there, he looked at it, he started processing it, looked at it, and he turns around and he sees this clearing to the left of him and he says, is that going backwards to go forward? And I was like, it is. If you get out, then you can go forward. And you don't lose that stroke if you bounce back and go another direction. He made the decision on his own. I was like, right there. I gave him the chance to make the decision. I didn't make it for him. So what did he do? He hit it backwards. Really cool shot out of there. He got it out there, and he landed right next to the green. He comes up, he's confident now. He made the decision. He did that. He's empowered. He goes up and steps up to the next shot. He's pumped up. Now I'm thinking, now he's too pumped up. He's going to blade it across the thing. But I didn't say anything. I said, good job. And I just get focused and be ready for the next one. We have a ton more shots to go today. So he hits it right up next to the pin, puts it in, and what could have been a complete disaster ended up being a par. It was a good score. It's a par. He was successful. He was proficient. He was actually, he did exactly what he needed to do for that hole. And because he made that decision, he was going to take that knowledge to the next level, to the next hole, to the next thing. So again, we go and talk about my son. My job as a parent is a caddy. If you watch professional golf, does the caddy ever take the shot? He gives advice, he talks, he runs through scenarios, helps with club selection, but ultimately you have to let your child take the shot and enjoy and try to embrace the failure. That's a puppy.
Oh, it's a bunny.
Squirrel. Sorry. I'm gonna have to see that afterwards. My job. We're gonna get you focused again. I'm sorry. I was just doing that to show ADHD. But my job is not to take the shots. My job is to be a caddy. And what's a caddy do after he's made his things? He steps back and lets his golfer take his shot. Good, fail, whatever. It's his shot. He owns it. So when I started stopping my son from getting his spelling list done, he started getting 60s. Man, that stunk. He was always upset. He was mad. He got out of the car. I always picked him up on Fridays. And he'd come out of the car. How did you do? And he's like, I got a 60. And it was really bad. So what are you going to do? I got to start saying, okay, that's cool. If you need me to run words with you, just ask me. I'll run words with you if you need it. But I'm not going to ask you to do it. He got that. Every once in a while, he started asking Mom. He started having, things going on. He started getting 70. He started getting 80. I keep asking him, how'd you feel? How'd you feel when you got the 70? Well, doesn't feel as good. Because, me and my wife don't tell our kids we're proud of them. That might shock some people, like, oh, no, you're out of your mind. It's not my job to be proud of him. It's his job to be proud of him. Am I proud? Yeah, I'm proud. I always enjoy it. But he gets out, he comes back, and he comes running out one day, and I said, oh my God, this is the day. He comes running out, Dad, I got 105? And before you ask, it feels good all over. I was like, where do I sign up for Parents of the Year and everything else? I'm done. This kid's fixed, man. His ADHD's gone. But we worked it. We didn't go to medicines at first. My son is on medicine now. But we didn't start it at first. We worked through this. We worked through the strategies. I wasn't about ready to take away the problem before I knew where we had it. Where was it coming up? Where was it surfacing? Well, when we finally decided to go to medicine is when we asked him to go feed the dogs. When we asked him to go feed the dogs, he didn't show up for like 5-10 minutes. So I'm like, where's our son? How do you get lost in the house? So I go around the corner, and I literally see my son like this in the closet. And I walked up behind him and said, what's going on? And he looked at me and said, I don't know what I'm doing. And that's like broke my heart, right? It's like, okay, it's time to go get some medicine. Low dosage. We really went there, and I'm not saying go get medicine. I'm saying strategy it out, figure out what's going on. If that's something you have to lead to, do it. But we also tried essential oils. I'm really big on essential oils, if those people don't. Lavender's great. If you have an ADHD kid who is having a hard time going to sleep, you take essential oils, and you rub them on their feet, and you put it on the ball's head. And we all do it in our house. It's a routine. And I have a diffuser of lavender, and my wife sprays the bed now, which that's a little too far. But I knock out, the whole family knocks out. But that's just a little strategy. But we had this little focus essential oil. And one day, Rose doing homework as a 5th grader, I think it was. And I come in the kitchen, and the dude seriously has olive oil in his hands, and he's rubbing it on the back of his neck. And I go, what are you doing? He goes, I need some more focus oil. I was like, that's for cooking, man. But you know what? That's awesome. He did a great job. I mean, he was like, oh, he knew. That was a strategy that helped me, because it does help me. And, even if it was a placebo for him, it was something that was making him want to focus. And I'm running over my time, I'm sorry. So I will finish up, but it's impossible to live without failing at something, unless you live so cautiously that you might as well not live at all, in which case you failed by default. So here are you guys looking for strategies? Everything's on the table. Try things. as long as you're putting your kid in the driver's seat. And the thing is, you're not at it alone. Talk to families, talk to friends, find out what's going, give me a call. You guys took the time to come up here, give me a call at my school, Trent Middle School. I have no problem offering any strategies or suggestions. All I wanted to say is that you are truly going to be successful if you define yourself by your effort, not your results. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Did you turn that on?
I don't know.
Hello. Okay. All right, our next speaker is Daniel Stein, and he is the owner of Special Strong, and he's going to tell you all about that and his story. Okay.
All right, thank you so much, Colleen, for the introduction. So my name is Daniel Stein. I am the founder of a company called Special Strong. I'll tell you a little bit about my company and kind of why I got started and why I have the right to stand in front of you and talk to you about ADHD tonight. I was diagnosed at the age of 4 with ADHD. And at the time when I was diagnosed, there were not a lot of alternative treatments. They didn't have a lot of the research that thankfully you now have access to. So I was immediately put on Ritalin. Okay, it's one of the most common drugs for ADHD. It's a stimulant medication. Many of you have heard of it. And my behavior got really bad. In middle school, I was put into in-school suspension, detention classes. In high school, it escalated to criminal activity. I got in trouble with the law. And that caused a lot of problems later down the road when I tried to get jobs at places. And a lot of this was triggered by the ADHD. As a matter of fact, in high school, I tried to self-medicate. Okay, I tried to figure things out on my own to cope with the chaos in my mind. My mind was just going a million miles an hour. The medicine wasn't really helping. It helped a little bit, but not enough. And so I took matters into my own hands. And my friends did it, so I did it naturally. And that caused problems for me as well. What ultimately changed my life was when I started working out. And so that was one of the things that my parents did was they bought me a workout set. So I would actually start to lift weights in the garage, and I learned how to use an outlet other than the self-medication, other than the medications. And so I started working out, and it changed my life, completely changed my life. I learned how to use my mind and the muscle-mind connection. I learned how to engage my brain through exercise. There's actually special exercises you can do that engage your brain. Not to mention, exercise actually makes you smarter. It's a proven fact that when you do a certain amount of exercise for high-intensity periods, there's a neurotransmitter called BNF that is released in your brain and literally makes you smarter. Makes medications more effective, makes vitamins more effective if you take vitamins. It's just amazing. So I became burdened at this point. When I started working out, I just had this burden. I was like, you know what, why didn't anybody tell me that instead of medications and instead of all these other things, that I could just work out? And so I started Special Strong in 2016, and we've seen unbelievable things with the special needs population. We've seen people that never were able to hold down a job, that have Down syndrome, now getting their first-time job. People with autism, you know, major meltdowns, major behavior problems, all solved and helped by working out. And so it's just unbelievable. So today I'll talk to you a little bit about exercise and how that's changed my life. But I also want to talk to you about parenting. Because just, you know, raise your hand if you're a parent in here, actually. Raise your hand. Okay, raise your hand if you're a perfect parent. Okay, so there's no perfect parents in here. So as a disclaimer, I'm going to tell you some things that my parents did really good and some things that they did really bad, okay? And they did the best they could. Again, they had very limited resources, so they did the best they could. So I want to share some of that with you guys tonight, and I hope it helps you out. So the first thing, and this is something that my parents did with me, and I got away with a lot of things because of it, but a huge problem that people do is they focus on the actions and they neglect the heart issue. So I'll give you an example of this. My parents used to always, they had a key phrase, and they would say OOC to me. And when they said OOC, it meant that I was being out of control, okay? So they would say OOC to me all the time because I was always out of control. But what they didn't do was they didn't tell me about the heart issue behind being out of control. What's wrong with being out of control? You know, in a lot of the cases, it was selfish behavior. I was focused on me, and I was focused on what I wanted. Did ADHD play a part in that? Absolutely, but my parents didn't focus on the heart issue. And I think that's so important for a kid or a student to understand the why behind, why behind the actions. So if you're going to get onto it for something, tell them why. Definitely tell them why. That's huge. This one really frustrates me, and as a trainer, I train a lot of clients, and I hear parents do this a lot. But do not identify your child as their behavior, okay? So if your child is being lazy, you're not going to go to Joe and say, Joe, you are lazy. There's words that I've had to overcome. There are negative tapes in my head that I had to overcome because my parents spoke words over me and defined my behavior as me. So that when I grew up, that was my identity. I took on that identity as who I was. Similar to, remind me your name?
Sean.
Similar to Sean, you know, they all told him that he wasn't going to go to college. Okay, those are negative self-tapes that played in his head. He had to overcome those negative self-tapes. But there's a huge difference between someone who's acting lazy and someone who is lazy. There's a huge difference. So if I said, Joe, you know what, you're acting lazy today, and you are so much better than that, Joe. I did not raise you as a lazy child. You are so much better than that. Show me what you're truly capable of. That's the proper way to address something like lazy behavior. But I hear this a lot. I hear parents do it, and it just becomes they're words that people say, and they don't even think about what they're saying. But it's so powerful in a mind. Another one is expecting perfection. I still to this day struggle with perfectionism and trying to perfect everything. The reality is perfection is impossible. There's no way you can perfect anything. There's excellence, you can do things really good, but perfection is impossible. And expecting perfection from your kids in any area is going to set them up for failure, and it's going to cause them to rebel. One of the reasons that I rebelled in high school was because I felt like I had all these rules that I had to follow that I couldn't follow. So I rebelled because I just simply couldn't do it. So expecting perfection is just setting your kid up for failure. Here's another big one too, is empowering the label ADHD. That's just a label. I mean, ADHD, I could probably get you guys to take a test, and I could probably diagnose every single one of you with symptoms of ADHD. It's just it's a bunch of symptoms that a lot of people have, and it's grouped into a category called ADHD. But talking about ADHD all the time and bringing it up all the time and reminding your son that they have it all the time, it does absolutely nothing for them. My parents did that for me a lot. They constantly reminded me that I had ADHD. And so what did I do? I used it as a crutch. When I did something wrong, oh, it was the ADHD, not me. It was the ADHD. And so don't empower the label ADHD. If you're going to empower anything, empower the gifts, because there are ADHD, like he talked earlier, ADHD is a gift. So if you're going to empower anything, empower the gift, not the label itself. And then lastly, this really messed me up big time. And I was a really good manipulator with my parents. And they would tell me, you know, you're in trouble, you're grounded for 2 weeks, and then they wouldn't follow through on it. And so what that did for me is it told me I could get away with things. So if you're going to enforce punishment, do what you say you're going to do. Your kids will lose respect for you if you set something up and say you're grounded for 2 weeks and then you go back on your word. Don't go back on your word. Especially for fathers, you got to be a man of your word. I mean, that's just the bottom line. All right, so let's talk about some positive parenting strategies. These are some things that my parents did really well with, and I'm very grateful for, and I still use a lot of them to this day. But one of the most important things you can do for your kids is to create structure and routine. Okay, that's going to look different for everybody, and I'm going to talk about later some different ways you can use technology to create structure and to create routine. But I have a routine that's pretty much the same every single day, and I've been following it for years, and this is what keeps me successful. And so one of the biggest things with this is sleep. Letting your kids sleep in on the weekends, I'm sure they enjoy that. That's horrible for them. Keep them on a consistent sleeping pattern. Okay? So if they're going to wake up for school at 7 or 8 o'clock during the week, they need to do that on the weekends. I know their friends are sleeping in, but it's not good for ADHD to have those huge waves and those huge patterns, those huge spikes in sleep. You've got to have consistent sleep. And even if you don't have ADHD, just in general, it's horrible for you to just sleep in on the weekends and then have a regular sleep pattern during the week. There's tons of studies that show that. You've got to have normal sleep patterns. Another thing too is keep things simple. If you want to lose somebody with ADHD and you want to completely lose their interest, give them a bunch of details, give them a bunch of instructions, and tell them a bunch of things. You will lose somebody so fast with ADHD. You've got to keep it simple. You've got to break it down. for a way that they understand. Maybe they're visual, we talked about that earlier. If they're visual learners, take advantage of that. Another big one is to extend grace. I put that on there because with ADHD, we need some grace. I mean, we really mess up a lot and we really fail a lot, like a lot, okay? And one of the best things that you can do as a parent is extend grace, and like we talked about earlier, it's okay to fail. Failing is a good thing. But if you don't have an environment for them to fail in, and they don't feel like you're going to extend grace, instead you get reprimanded, it's going to be very, very, very bad for your children. Another thing my parents did really, really well is that they were a huge advocate for me in school. And there's nothing that fires me up more than when I see parents that go to the PTO meetings, they go to church, they go to all these different meetings, but they're not involved at all with their kids' school. They don't go to any of the meetings. That really bothers me a lot, and there's really no excuse for it. And so as a parent, if your son or daughter has ADHD, you need to be talking to all the parents, the coaches, everybody in the school. You need to be connected with them on a regular basis. My parents were constantly, on a weekly and sometimes daily basis, they were getting emails and contact from my school because I had so much trouble there. I had trouble learning, I had trouble with everything. And so that's one of the best things that they did for me was staying involved. And then tracking behavior is huge. There's a lot of good technology apps that you can use to track behavior, but there's going to be days that your son or daughter has good days with their ADHD and there's bad days, okay? And there's oftentimes a pattern that you can identify. It could be something in their diet, it could be something just in their circumstances. It's really important to track and find out why it is they have good days and why it is they have bad days. That way you can have more consistent good days. I'm not a nutritionist, I'm not a dietitian, but I do know some things that can really help nutritionally with your son or daughter who has ADHD, and this is good for anybody, by the way, even if you don't have ADHD. But there's a lot of studies on fish oil. If you're not on fish oil, everybody in this room needs to be on fish oil because nobody in here eats enough fish, or at least high quality fish for that matter, to get the omegas that you need on a weekly basis. So everybody should be on fish oil, especially with ADHD. The DHA in fish oil is phenomenal for brain development. It's phenomenal for ADHD. There's studies behind it. It's a very inexpensive supplement. There's no reason why you shouldn't be on fish oil. Calms Magnesium is another great product. It's a powder. If your kids have trouble sleeping at night, give them some Calms before they go to bed. Most people are deficient in magnesium anyway, so it's not going to hurt them to have a little extra magnesium. I'm not going to try to say this, but it's really good for the brain, okay? Really good for the brain. And I actually got this from my psychiatrist who, when he was helping me get off some of my medications, he told me to get on this stuff. And it's a great supplement for just focus and attention. B complex, I've been taking that for probably the last 5 years, every single day. You're not going to get the B vitamins you need from your diet, and the B vitamins are important for pretty much every part of your nervous system and just general functioning, so you need to be taking that. And then with medication, there is a time and place for medication, but use it as a last resort. Don't use it as a first resort unless you absolutely have to. To this day, I wish that I wasn't put on medication when I was 4. I didn't have a choice, and I wish I would have known about some of the options that are available now. And then a couple diet tips. One of the best things you can do is to stabilize blood sugar levels. So the way you're going to do that is to keep it low in the glycemic index. Does anybody know what the glycemic index is? What, are you a nutritionist or something?
No, but I've studied a whole lot.
That's awesome. She knows the glycemic index. You can go online and Google glycemic index and you can find pretty much like every single food out there and the effect it has on your blood sugar. So if it's a high number, it has a high effect on your blood sugar. If it's a low number, which is good, it has a low effect on blood sugar. So
net carbs should be less than 30.
yeah. So with the glycemic index, one of the things you want to do with that is keep it really low. Okay. So as an example, if you had table sugar or wheat bread, that's very high on the glycemic index. If you had like strawberries or blueberries, something with fiber, is going to be lower on the glycemic index. But when you have all these spikes in blood sugar, it's going to affect your moods because your blood sugar is going like this all the time. And diet plays a huge, huge part in managing ADHD. High protein, complex carbohydrates. protein needs to be very high, higher than most people. And the complex carbohydrates just means that it contains fiber. So you don't want to be doing like, potatoes and rices. You want to be looking at like brown rices, things that contain fiber to help stabilize the blood sugar. And then another big one is try to stay away from dyes and artificial sweeteners. Those are horrible in general for anybody, especially for ADHD. Stay away from like the little, on labels they've got the little pound sign and they've got like FD40. Nobody even knows what that means, right? But stay away from that stuff. It's horrible. And then lastly, sugar is the enemy. I think sugar is probably like the absolute worst thing that you could possibly consume if you have ADHD. Like for sure the number one thing you want to avoid is high amounts of sugar. If you want your kid to be all jacked up, give them tons of sugar. And you probably already know when you give them sugar, they go crazy. So, you know that, so don't do it. So here's a couple exercise strategies. This is in the picture, this is Josh. Josh has Down syndrome, and he was one of our clients that got their first time job with us. Kind of cool, I just thought I'd share that. But he's doing some brain exercises there. But 30 minutes of high intensity exercise. I talked about BNF earlier, and it really takes about 30 minutes of exercise to activate that neurotransmitter in your mind to really receive the benefits of that BNF, which is going to help you with, again, just being smarter, basically. It literally makes you smarter. It's incredible what exercise does. But it's got to be about 30 minutes. It can't just be walking around the block. That's not going to cut it. It has to be pretty high intensity. The muscle-mind connection, this is what I talked about earlier, but going to the weight room or wherever it is that you can work out, teaching your son or daughter just to visualize what they're doing with their eyes closed is huge. And that's something that I still do when I work out, is I visualize what I'm doing. I visualize on the muscle groups that I'm working on. I do that with my clients, and it's unbelievable what it does. Using it as an outlet, that was the biggest thing for me. With exercise, I used it as an outlet for my ADHD because I needed an outlet. I always had this tendency to fidget. I still have that tendency, and exercise just was that outlet for me, and it's just so incredible. And then there's brain engaging exercises. There's a lot, and if you guys ever want some exercises like this, you can reach out to me or email me, because as a company, this is what makes us unique, is we really target the brain in our exercise program in ways that you've probably never seen before. So I'm not going to go into that right now, but Josh right here, as an example, he's doing a leg extension and he's doing a overhead press at the same time. That takes a lot of brain power to do that. You're lifting up your legs and you're lifting the dumbbells up in the air at the same time. And then what we would do is we'll alternate. So I'll say Josh left hand, right, or I'll say like right leg, left hand. And so now he's putting one arm and one leg up. It's unbelievable what it does for the brain. That's just one example of what we do. Write down these apps. I use all of these apps personally, and they are incredible. Wunderlist, I use that all the time. All these apps are free, by the way. They're for iPhone and Android. Wunderlist is, I use that constantly. Anytime I have, because I'm always thinking, my mind's always going, and I get ideas all the time. And so normally what I do is I put them in Wunderlist, especially if it's something I need to do as a task. It allows you to set reminders, which I need a lot of reminders for stuff that I do, so I use Wunderlist for that. Evernote, I'll talk about this in a few slides after this, but I use Evernote to journal. I've been journaling for about 10 years, and I record things in my journal, things that I want to remember, things that I can go back on. When I take notes, anywhere that I go, I pretty much take notes. Anytime if I go to church, I pull up Evernote and I write down all my notes because I know I'm going to forget stuff, and I use Evernote. Simple Note is another. It's kind of like Evernote, but way scaled down, and it's like a really fast note organizer. So I kind of use that as a memo. So if I'm in a super big hurry and I need to write something down, then I'll use that. Google Calendar. Google Calendar, I'm on this every single day, and I'll show you the next slide what my Google Calendar looks like. But I have about 12 calendars, all color-coded for every single possible event. So I have a medical calendar, I have a calendar for my wife that she sees on her end. It keeps my life in order, is what it does. And then ebooks. I don't know about anyone else with ADHD, but I hate reading paperback books. Something about the stimulation I get from an electronic screen, I could read books all day long. I don't get it, but that's just how I am. So I want to show you guys my calendar. This is a typical week for me. I'm pretty busy during the week, if you can't tell. And you can see that there's all these different colors on there. So I've got purple, which is like personal. I've got blue, which are clients. And then I've got other colors for my wife and I. But this keeps me organized. And it helps me so much. So I just want to show you this and kind of how I use that on a daily basis. And then the last thing, this is probably, outside of exercise, well, I'd actually say that this has been more effective than exercise for managing my ADHD. And I call it the secret place. And there's actually, if you're ever interested, there's actually a really good book called The Secret Place. You can go find it on Amazon. But what I do every single morning, the first thing that I do is I get in my car and I go over to my office. And I spend about 2 hours every single morning in my office doing these 3 things. The first thing I do is I journal, okay? So I write down my thoughts, I write down what's on my mind, I think about yesterday, I think about how maybe I was a bad husband yesterday and how I could do better. I just reflect on life, and I do that as part of my 2-hour process in the morning. I also practice gratefulness and mindfulness, so I think about things that I'm grateful for, okay? Instead of focusing on what I don't have or what I need, I focus on what I do have. And then sometimes I'll do some breathing techniques where I'll just close my eyes and take deep breaths, and that really helps relax me. But this has been the most powerful thing for me in terms of, I would say, overcoming ADHD, is just having this place to go to. It's a safe place for me. Nobody else is there. There's no distractions. And I can just really let everything go. So, anyways, that's my presentation. If you guys have any questions, I think there's going to be a Q&A later. But thank you all so much for your time and let me come out and talk.
Our next presenter is Clay Grubb. Clay is our Frisco ISD transition specialist, so very important position in the district, and he's going to tell us about his story.
For those that don't know my position, hopefully your students won't have to experience the transition program. However, we're here to support students that really need that transition program. So what I'm going to talk about tonight is my experience with ADHD, as well as the outcomes, because that's what we're about, is what the student outcomes are. And so I really want y'all to be thinking about, like Sean was saying, how you can be removed from the process, because the expectations that you have are the student's reality. Let that sink in for a minute. If you have low expectations, then the reality is going to be low. It's going to reflect the level of expectation you have. A high expectation will result in a high reality. So for my story, it's completely different than these guys. And the reason is because ADHD is a spectrum disorder. It's not something that can be defined by any one person or any one story. I went to 5 elementary schools. My mother is a single mother, had me when she was 20. We were on public assistance for a long time. I was a poster child for a bad situation. However, we ended up moving to a school district and settled down for a while. Was tested, and unfortunately, I'm sad to say that they ended up with a test result that had me at an IQ of 163. That didn't go the way you thought it did. I have a very powerful race car in my brain, but come to find out, I don't have a steering wheel for that race car. So, my story is, I did great in school. I did great in high school. 4.0 average. Never had an issue with my classes, had early release. I was able to manage football, wrestling, choir. I did some band. It wasn't for me. Doors flew open for me. I was able to manage all those things because I had a race car. However, once those doors flew open, I got into college, got a full ride to college, Texas A&M Corpus Christi. It's a beautiful college. It also has a beach on campus, which isn't advisable. The doors flew open for me, and on the other side of that door was a cliff. Because I was able to perform at such a high level that that's where the school district stopped looking. Once I was in a GT program, once I got into those high achieving, high performing classes, that's where they stopped looking. I had all the classic symptoms of a student with ADHD. I have report cards saying Clay's humming in class. He's a disturbance to those around him. I stopped humming when that was addressed, started whistling. I was able to pass the tests. I was able to pass the quizzes. I was able to do all the things that we were looking for. However, the things I wasn't able to do was do homework, manage my activity calendar, manage my money, defaulted on several student loans once I got out of college. Not once I got, while I was in college. So those things that would make me successful in the real world, I did not acquire in school. I acquired the book learning, the book knowledge. Subsequently, once I graduated from high school, went to Texas A&M Corpus Christi on a full-ride scholarship in geographic information science. Fortunately, I didn't continue that program because that major is obsolete now with GPS technology, but maybe that was best for me. Like I said, had a beach on campus. Man, it was great. I was the king of the world because you know what? I came from this history of being able to do everything. I'm gonna ace these classes because I can take all the tests. Well, guess what? College is hard. College is not high school. And I did not have any of my systems in place. And so that's my first strategy. Systems will keep you sane. Literally keep you and your students sane. Because I did not rely on any systems to support me. I relied on my race car. Well, guess what? Like I said, my race car didn't have a steering wheel. I could point it in one direction and I will hit a wall. The systems that I had to develop protected me from those walls. My race car still has no steering wheel, but instead of running into a concrete wall, I started running into hay bales. I started having some people that could maybe push my car one way or the other. And then ultimately with medication, I got a little steering wheel and I was able to control things a little bit more. I'm the district transition specialist, so I think about transition needs. We have students across the range of abilities who we're currently working on vocational skills. All of our students are done with their academic needs, their academic requirements. All they're working on are vocational skills. Sean had a slide that made me laugh because it said, I'm a helicopter parent. I go to my son's job interview earlier this year. 20-year-old student went to apply or interview at McDonald's. His mom interviewed for him at McDonald's. What does that do for that student? That student can get a job. They can pass the test of getting into the program, or getting into a situation. What did that gain him in being able to negotiate that job field? So systems will keep you sane. At home, like Sean mentioned, what are you doing that your son or daughter can do? I guarantee you they can do much more than you give them credit for. They can do their laundry. I promise you, our 7-year-old who has ADD, God help us all, can do her own laundry. We put stickers on the washing machine. We put things in every place we can imagine so that she can do it. Because I'm stepping out of the mix. Number one, I believe, I haven't looked into the research on this, ADHD is a hereditary disease or disorder. And when you put myself trying to teach my daughter how to do something, it doesn't go well. It's damaging to our relationship because I have expectations and I want result. She has expectations and she wants result. And so we have to go get Amanda Grubb, the wife, to say, can you negotiate this situation? Because we need the process. We need the systems in place, not the result. And so I have to step away. I have to be smart enough to say, this is not my forte. I have to lean on my partner and say, you need to help me, help us manage the situation. So systems will keep you sane. The second one is I had to think about what I'm going to say. I had to figure out the difference between productive and creative thought. It's very abstract, so I'll break it down a little bit. When I created my systems, I had to figure out what I wanted to do when I was working. In school, I never had to figure that out because I was always good enough just to get by. Didn't have those skills in place. So I had to sit down and think about, when I sit down to work, what do I want to do? Do I want to get something done, productive work or productive thought, or do I want to develop or create something, creative thought? So in preparing to speak with y'all tonight, I did not sit down and write a presentation. If I did that, I would be staring at a computer right now with a blank page because my brain locks up and I don't know what to do. However, when I'm driving around as part of my job, I'm constantly thinking, I need the stimulus input to distract myself from the thought processes that are going on in my brain so I can produce creative things. Because that's what ADHD, the superpower that we have, that's what ADHD thrives in for me, is I can be distracted and be thinking about something very, very critical and developing something very great. However, if I need to sit down and do something, I can have zero distraction. I need to have zero distractions. I like to listen to music now. I've gotten to that point. However, I have to listen to music that is not only like lyric free, but doesn't repeat. It doesn't have a pattern that I can think about or I can identify with, because if I think about, okay, that's a repeating melody, then I'm off. I'm not doing what I need to do. I have to listen to maybe jazz or white noise, which are all things that get me into a place where I can get my focus down and get things done. I also have to work on one thing at a time. We are kings and queens in the ADHD community of thinking we can multitask. Let me tell you right now, I cannot multitask worth a darn. I wanted to say something else, but I realized I'm in school. Because I can do many different things well, but what if I need to do one thing great? I have to focus that energy. There's more studies recently that suggest that our willpower and our focus is a limited quantity. We have it in a limited supply, and we can funnel it in different directions. However, if you start with 100 amount of focus and you give 25 to 4 things, you have very little left to give, and then you start getting negative results, is what the research is saying. So systems will keep you sane. Your expectation is your reality, and the difference between creative and productive thought. One other one that I wanted to technology. I'm going to reference back to my technology to remember what I was going to say. This is actually the thing that has changed my life in conjunction with medication. So to give you kind of a history on my medication experience, because I was managing things myself, I was getting into things that weren't great for my body nor for my social life. And so what you'll find is that adults and individuals with ADHD are about 20% more likely to abuse medications and to abuse substances because they're seeking that medication themselves. They're seeking that structure for themselves. We had to get to the point where I was wandering around my apartment, and it rang a bell when Sean mentioned his son. I said, I'm gonna clean the apartment. Me and my wife were living together. I'm gonna clean the apartment. She was thrilled. I'm gonna clean the apartment. I go and get a trash bag. I picked up one thing from the counter. I picked up one thing from my desk. And then I sat on the couch and I started watching TV with the trash bag in my hand. And Amanda said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I don't know." It was very clear that I did not have control over what my attention was drawn to. And so we decided, okay, we need to do something. So I got on 3 medications. I had anxiety because of my ADHD. I had sleep disorder because of my ADHD. And, oh yeah, we need to treat the ADHD as well. This is my story with medication. The medication is the key point in my life where things shifted for me. Because I was able to have that little steering wheel in my race car to start putting systems in place. I now have systems that I can rely on when things go south. My medication doesn't work all the time. It's not a solution. However, it got me to the point where I created these things in my life that saved me, and ultimately I was able to get off of the sleep medication. I was able to get off of the anxiety medication, and I was able to reduce my ADHD medication. I went from a long-acting day one to one where I can target when I need the medicine and what I need to focus on. And part of those systems are technology. Daniel spoke of it briefly. If it doesn't go into my device or if it doesn't get written down, I will not do it, and it did not happen. I have 1,000 calendar appointments similar to Daniel that I have to keep track of. I would not be able to do so if I hadn't done that. One app that I want to call out specifically is an app called Headspace. I use it on a regularly, I would say 5 out of 7 nights a week with my daughter as well as myself. It's a guided mindfulness and meditation app. Very easy, very simple. It's got great animations to really walk you through how to do some breathing exercises like Daniel was mentioning, how to get yourself and your mind in a place where you can either move through your day or process your day. Those are the two most difficult times in my life, were the mornings and the evenings, because I was trying to prepare for things I wasn't ready for, or I was fixated on things I had failed on. So those 4 things, get your systems in place, figure out how you work best, creative and productive thought. Your expectations are your reality, and I beg you to use technology with your students, or with they're your children, they're my students. Use technology to the best of your ability to support your children. It is easy for them, and it's hard for us. However, that's the reality that they're living in, and individuals with ADHD can flourish in those realities. So just to end my story, it took me, again, 7 years to get through college. That seems to be a consistent plan. I finished up at the University of North Texas with my degree in kinesiology. I just finished my master's in Lamar. It took me 7 years to get my bachelor's. It took me 18 months to get my master's. That's because I had my systems in place. I knew what to rely on, and I knew who I could rely on when I needed it. So, thank you for your time, and if you all have any questions, I think we have some time for question and answer. Thank you.